just to a broader non-Jewish audience, which is important because as a podcast, we're trying to reach as many people as possible because it is ultimately important information. It is historical information and it is information that we should all know.
Yeah.
What do you think is the significance of his trial to that broader non-Jewish audience?
I think we often learn things in history. We get them out of books and we don't always get them right. I mean, I'm old enough to remember all of the erroneous things about the Civil War that were in my social studies books. Lots of things. And even World War I. So I think Holocaust deniers and people who are not Jewish, of course, they ask the question. And I understand this question. Because as I told you, the Jewish children ask this question. How could this happen? How didn't 6 million people rise up and rebel and kill him? And I think it's important to know this because evil doesn't always go away. In every generation, varying in scale, varying in countries, people are brutal to people. People kill people. Russians kill Ukrainians. Ukrainians kill Russians. Iranians kill others.
I think, like we have such
The
like a false
Turks are fighting with others.
Armenians, for one.
Exactly. So I think what's to learn from the Holocaust is that we can all be blinded to evil and that we have to kind of learn from it how not to be, how to be brave and how to keep our eyes open and how not to be fooled by all kinds of stories. I mean, really, all kinds of stories.
I like totally
I guess
agree.
that's my
And I
answer
think
to your question.
like on top of that, like a lot of people nowadays, you think because of like the modernity we're facing now, or like how like recent times are, that such an atrocity can't occur because of how like sophisticated our society is. But like at the end of the day, like that's not necessary. That's not only is that not necessarily true, that's not true at all, because not only are such atrocities currently occurring in other parts of the world. If you look back in Germany was one of the most advanced societies of that day, and that event still occurred.
It was. But even if you think about this, talking about atrocities, even the scale. We live in America. There are gun murders every other week.
School shootings.
Okay?
Yeah.
You know? Supermarkets and schools and churches, etc. So where's that coming from? And how are we to understand it? And how are we not to be blind to it? And how are we to do anything about it? Nobody's putting us on the cattle cars the way the Nazis put the Jews. But we're here, living here, and good people are getting killed. So it's still around.
And understanding that is, I think, the root of all social activism. That happened then, that happened now, that will happen.
Exactly. Exactly. I think, you know, some people say, oh, you know, activism, it doesn't do anything. But ultimately, it does something. And you have to keep at it. and you have to keep engaging younger people to understand this. So I'm hoping that maybe people reading my book will get that universal quality.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
that's what I had in mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we definitely picked that up. And like, speaking of the book, before we dive into the book related questions, I want to say like it kind of like, aside from your experience in actual Israel, like you could also kind of like see that you've done like research before as a journalist, because like it kind of reads in a good way, like a literature review in terms of like how the Eichmann case like kind of culminated and how you synthesize like so many different sources to create like this case. And it's kind of like neat because it's like a literature review, which is usually very objective, the most objective of all. It's like the nonfiction of nonfiction. And you kind of painted.
Let's face it. I've done a million nonfiction stories, and I'm a journalist. Okay. And the answer to your question is I think I'm a pretty good researcher. So, but I wrote this as a novel, but that doesn't mean that I could eliminate from my psyche the journalist.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I can't. Okay, I can't.
Yeah, we definitely picked
There
up
was
on
a
that.
lot of
Because it's
making sure
developed.
that I was on the right street and the right this and the right that.